It stands at the center of the empire, but it was never built by men. The white gold tower, a monument of impossible stone, glowing with ancient power. It has outlived empires, witnessed gods fall, and held the fates of nations within its shadow. The Ayleids raised it, long before man ever touched the soil of Cyrodiil. To them it was not architecture, it was myth made real, a tower of convergence where magic, time, and divinity met in silent alignment. But time does not bow to its creators, and when the Ayleids fell, the tower remained. Tiber Septim claimed it as the jewel of his conquest, the symbol of his empire, the place where dragonfires would burn to seal Tamriel against oblivion itself. And still, the tower watched through wars, treaties, betrayals, and divine silence. It endures. Silent and unreadable, today the Thalmor hold it, and they say they understand it, but some believe the tower is more than stone. They say it is a key or a lock or a lie. This is the story of the White Gold Tower, and if you follow it closely, you may begin to understand what holds Tamriel together and what could tear it apart. Subscribe now to Tales of Tamriel and uncover the secrets built into the very bones of the Empire. A tower not meant for men. Before Cyrodiil was the heart of the Empire, it was the heart of something far older. Not a nation, not a kingdom, but a vision. Long before men ever set foot in the Nibene Valley, the Ayleids, the wild elves, ruled the land. Their cities gleamed with light pulled from the stars. Their spells sang in languages older than time. And at the center of it all, they raised their greatest creation, the White Gold Tower. It was not built to impress. It was not even built to last. It was built to connect. The Ayleids believed in myth made real. They saw Mundus not as a world, but as a converging point, a place where magic, time, divinity, and reality overlapped. The tower was meant to sit at the axis of that convergence, anchoring their dominion not just in space, but in cosmic alignment. Its structure was precise, 12 levels, each corresponding to celestial principles. Its white stone, mined from places no longer known, resonated with magical frequencies, and its core, hidden, sealed, and never fully understood, was rumored to be more than stone. Some say it was an echo of creation, a remnant of the very forces that birthed Nirn. To the Ayleids, the tower was not merely architecture. It was doctrine. It was command over chaos. It was stability in a world born from violence. And it worked, for a time. From the tower, the Ayleids ruled an empire of glittering cruelty. Their arcane power was unrivaled, and their mastery over magic so profound that they could shape entire ecosystems with a thought. The White Gold Tower stood as their beacon, visible for miles, impossible to ignore, and ever glowing with arcane light. But power, no matter how divine it may seem, is never eternal. The Ayleids, in their pride, began to fracture. Some clung to their ancient pacts with Daedric princes. Others embraced darker rituals, turning their cities into sanctuaries of blood and torment. And beneath them, men began to stir. The slave rebellion led by Alessia, fueled by divine aid, mythic courage, and the will of Akatosh himself, tore through the heart of the Ayleid Empire. Cities burned, thrones crumbled, the gods of the elves were silent. But the tower remained. Even as the Ayleids fell one by one, the White Gold Tower stood untouched. Not because it was spared, but because it could not fall. No mortal force could bring it down. No spell could unmake it. It was fixed not in stone, but in cosmic necessity. When Queen Alessia claimed it, she didn't just seize a symbol, she seized the spiritual center of Cyrodiil. She turned the Ayleid beacon into a flame of man's freedom. And the tower, without protest, without resistance, became hers. But here lies the question few dare ask. Did the tower change sides, or did it simply continue waiting? Because the tower was never loyal to its builders. It is not bound to race, nation, or name. It is bound to purpose. And what that purpose truly is remains one of the great secrets of Tamriel. Some scholars believe the Ayleids never fully understood what they built, that they tapped into forces beyond their comprehension, and that the tower's true function remains dormant, or worse, active in ways no one notices. Others suggest that the Ayleids built it not just as a tool of power, but as a fail-safe, a mechanism to control the fabric of Mundus itself, or perhaps to escape it entirely. We may never know, but what is certain is this: the white gold tower was not made for conquest. It was not made for one race to rule another. It was made to endure, to observe, to bind, and whether its bindings are protective or oppressive is a question no empire has answered yet. Conquest and consecration. When the Ayleids fell, the tower did not sleep. It watched. For centuries it stood at the heart of a growing empire, first ruled by Alessia and her line, then by warlords and priests, emperors and pretenders. But no one ever truly mastered it, not until him, not until Tiber Septim. He was not the first to claim the ruby throne, but he was the first to earn it in fire. His rise was not prophecy. It was strategy, steel, and the unshakable belief that Tamriel could be unified not through diplomacy, but through domination. Tiber Septim's legions swept across the continent with brutal precision. Hammerfell, High Rock, Skyrim. One by one, the provinces fell or submitted. He was not a man of half measures. He was a storm in armor, wielding not just armies, but myth itself. Some say he used Numidium, the brass god, the golem of the Dwemer. Others say his voice, his thuum, was strong enough to split mountains. What is certain is this: wherever he went, resistance withered. And at the center of it all stood the white gold tower. Not just a prize, not just a symbol, but a foundation. Tiber did not merely take the tower, he reclaimed it, in his eyes, not from the elves, not even from history, but from instability. From the chaos of fractured kingdoms and wavering thrones, he raised his banners within its walls, and in doing so, recast the myth. What once was Ayleid magic became Imperial law. What once bound stars now bound banners. The tower became the keystone of the empire. But Tiber understood what others before him had not. The tower was not just political, it was cosmic. He turned its ancient purpose toward a new function, the burning of the dragon fires. With the help of the Amulet of Kings and the blessing of Akatosh, Tiber Septim enacted the Covenant, a divine pact that bound the mortal realm against the forces of oblivion. So long as the dragon fires burned within the Temple of the One, no Daedric prince could set foot upon Nirn. It was not just a defense, it was dominion. For the first time since creation, the line between Nirn and oblivion was not just held by the gods, it was held by a man. Tiber Septim was no longer just a general. He was no longer just a ruler. He became Talos, the ninth divine. And the white gold tower became more than a monument. It became the anchor of reality itself. But this fusion of myth and power came with a price, because in reshaping the tower's role, Tiber may have rewritten the rules. not just of politics, but of existence. Some say the moment the dragon fires were lit, the tower ceased to be neutral. It became a weapon, not for creation, but for control. Others whisper that the tower never truly accepted Talos, that his apotheosis was an act of force, not faith, that the tower endures, but it does not agree. Because while Tiber Septim believed he had unified Tamriel, he may have only paused its unraveling. Empires rot from within. Divinity breeds silence. And power, once seized, always invites challenge. Yet for that moment, brief as a candle in a storm, the world believed. They believed in the Empire, in the Dragonborn, in the tower that held the line between gods and demons. And the tower watched not as a servant, not as a shrine, but as something ancient, indifferent, and maybe even amused, because it had seen many rise, and it would see many fall. But in Tiber, it saw something different, not just a ruler, not just a myth, but a man who dared to use it. Power in stone. After conquest comes control, and in the golden shadow of the white gold tower, control was absolute. For generations after Tiber Septim's ascension, the tower became more than the spine of Cyrodiil. It became the axis of the empire itself. All roads led to it, all decrees issued from it, and all eyes, whether in Black Marsh or the Somerset Isles, eventually turned toward its glowing peak. It was not just geography, it was design. The tower stood at the literal center of White Gold City, known in later eras as the Imperial City. A city built like a wheel, with the tower as its hub, and the 8 districts radiating outward like spokes. Streets, gates, and even aqueducts were aligned not by urban planning, but by cosmic symmetry. And at the center of the tower, behind guarded halls and holy chambers, burned the dragon fires. Their light was not symbolic, it was binding. So long as they burned, the covenant with Akatosh held. The barrier between Mundus and Oblivion remained closed. No Daedric prince could physically walk Nirn. Their influence remained whispers, not footsteps. This made the tower both a throne and a shield. And under its protection, the Septim Dynasty endured. The Imperial City became the cultural and political capital of Tamriel. It drew scholars, merchants, warriors, spies, and dreamers from every province. Ideas were forged there. Alliances tested, wars ended. From the stone streets outside the arena to the marbled floors of the Elder Council chamber, the tower's reach was felt in every conversation, every coin, every command. But power concentrated is also power vulnerable. As the centuries passed, the empire began to crack, not from outside pressure, but from within. Succession crises, corrupt officials, divine silence. The Septim line grew thin, and the divine authority of Talos began to fade. The tower remained, but its purpose began to drift. With each new emperor, the connection to the divine weakened. The dragonfires were still lit, but fewer understood why. The rituals became pageantry, the meaning became memory. Then came Uriel Septim VII, a scholar, a dreamer, a believer. Uriel saw the decline and feared what would follow. He studied the tower, sought its secrets, and tried to prepare the empire for what he believed was inevitable. He was right. When he fell, assassinated by a Daedric cult, the amulet of kings was shattered, and the dragon fires extinguished. The barrier broke. The Oblivion crisis began. Gates opened across Tamriel. Cities burned. The gods were silent, and the people turned to ruins and rumors for comfort. But even as Oblivion touched the world, the white gold tower stood, wounded, emptied, but not destroyed, because the tower was never just about the empire. It was about the pattern. the weave of Nirn, a keystone in the foundation of reality. And that pattern, even when frayed, endures. After the crisis, the Empire limped on, but it was never the same. The Septims were gone, the divine connection broken. The faith that once lit the tower dimmed to ritual. But the tower remained, and in its shadow, new powers began to rise. Scholars still debate what the tower truly is. A zero stone tied to the laws of Mundus? A focus point for mortal will? A trap left by the Aedra? A weapon? No one agrees, but all agree on this. So long as the white gold tower stands, Tamriel has a center, even if that center no longer holds. It has become a monument, a memory, a relic of power that once shaped an entire world, now surrounded by silence and suspicion. But monuments are not always dead. Sometimes they sleep, and when they wake, they remember everything. War and the white gold Concordat. Empires rarely fall in a single battle. They fall in silence, in hesitation, in the signing of a paper held by a shaking hand. The Great War did not begin with the tower, but it would end with it. After the Oblivion Crisis and the fall of the Septim line, the Empire limped forward under the Mede Dynasty, smaller, weaker, and less divine. It no longer commanded the reverence of the provinces, it managed them. And far to the west, a new power grew. The Aldmeri Dominion had returned, not as an ally, but as an empire reborn. At its heart, the Thalmor, a faction of high elves who did not forget the past and did not forgive it. To them, the worship of Talos was not just heresy. It was an insult. A man elevated to godhood, placed above the ancient pantheon of the Aldmer? Unthinkable, unacceptable. And so the Thalmor demanded an end to it. The Empire refused, and so war came. The Great War tore across southern Tamriel like a wildfire. The Dominion struck hard and fast, using precision, magic, and cruelty honed over centuries. Entire cities fell before the Legion could even raise its banners. Hammerfell burned, Cyrodiil shook. And in the final act of their campaign, the Thalmor did what even the Daedra failed to do. They reached the white gold tower. The siege was brutal, the city choked in flame. The tower, once invincible, was surrounded, its stones scorched, its gates broken. It had stood through Ayleid tyranny, a Lessian revolution, and the Oblivion Crisis. But even it could not escape the arrogance of peace. And yet, the Empire held, barely. At the cost of countless lives, the Legion reclaimed the city in a counterattack known only as the Battle of the Red Ring. It was a hard-won victory, but it came too late to matter, because the Empire, bleeding and broken, did not have the strength to continue. What followed was not celebration. It was compromise. The white gold Concordat, a treaty named after the tower itself, was signed in the same halls where Tiber Septim once stood as a god-king. It gave the Thalmor everything they wanted: the banning of Talos worship, the disbanding of his priesthood, the right of the Thalmor to root out heresy within Imperial borders. In return, peace. A peace forged in humiliation. To the Thalmor, it was vindication, a symbolic reversal of Tiber's apotheosis. To the Empire, it was a scar, deep, quiet, and still bleeding. And the white gold tower, it stood, but not as a symbol of unity. Now it stood under occupation. The Thalmor claimed to protect it, to preserve its ancient purpose, but many believe they seek to unlock it, to study its mechanisms, its mythic roots, its connection to the towers of Nirn, and the structure of Mundus itself. Some whisper that the tower has already been compromised, that its metaphysical integrity has been severed, that its purpose is no longer stable. Because in the mythic structure of the world, towers are not just buildings, they are pillars of reality. And when a tower falls, not physically but spiritually, the world itself begins to unravel. So what happens? If the Thalmor are not simply occupying the tower but dismantling it, one rune at a time, one truth at a time, until the lock is undone and something far older is released. These questions go unanswered. Because in the Fourth Era, truth is a dangerous thing, and silence is often enforced. But those who still believe in Talos, those who remember the fires once lit within the tower, do not forget. They see its golden stone as sacred, as stolen, and perhaps as the first target in a war yet to come. Because the tower may have endured gods and Daedra, but nothing tests stone like time, and the Thalmor are patient. What the tower hides. The white gold tower has stood for millennia, but no one truly knows why. Empires claim it. Elves built it. Gods walked within it. And yet, it remains silent. There are books written about its architecture, scrolls on its magical resonance, theories about its alignment with the stars, the moons, and even the void beyond. But when scholars speak in hushed tones, when mages whisper behind locked doors, the question is always the same. What is the tower really for? The Ayleids believed it was a focus, a place where myth became reality. Tiber Septim saw it as a throne, a place to bind the world to his will. The Thalmor treat it as a mechanism, something that can be unlocked, controlled, perhaps even unmade. But some believe the truth is far older. In ancient texts, buried deep in the libraries of the Crystal Tower, or scrawled on forgotten walls in Apocrypha, there are mentions of the towers of Nirn, structures not just of stone, but of law, of possibility, of stability. White gold, adamant, crystal-like law, snowthroat, green sap, and others, perhaps lost or hidden. Each one is said to hold a zero stone, an anchor point in the metaphysical structure of the world. If Nirn is a tapestry, these stones are the nails holding it in place. Remove enough nails, and the tapestry begins to fall apart. This is the great conspiracy whispered in circles too afraid to speak aloud, that the towers are not simply monuments, they are keystones of reality. And the Thalmor, in their hunger to reshape the world in their image, are not merely conquering, they are unweaving. Some believe the white gold tower is already broken, not physically, but mythically. That with the fall of the Septim line and the end of the dragon fires, the tower's purpose failed. Its function collapsed. It still stands, but it no longer binds. Others argue the opposite, that the tower has simply gone dormant, waiting, listening, that it holds within it the final safeguard left by the gods, or by something older still. And then there are those who claim the tower is a trap, a prison, a wound, a hole in the world, sealed with stone and song, a place where something terrible was once buried, and where the locks are slowly being undone. These are not just stories, not just myths, because every time one of Nirn's towers falls, the Crystal Tower, the Orichalc, something changes. Magic shifts, time bends, the stars forget their names. And now, the white gold tower stands compromised, under occupation, surrounded by secrecy, studied by those who would rewrite the world, not for peace, but for purity. What happens when the tower falls? Not crumbles, but fails. What happens when the final keystone of reality is removed, and Mundus is no longer held in place? Will the gods return? Will the world dissolve? Will something older wake up? No one knows, and those who try to know tend not to live long. Because the tower is not just power, it is truth. And truth in Tamriel is the most dangerous thing of all. The white gold tower still shines, still stands, still watches. But ask yourself, when was the last time it spoke? And more importantly, what will it say when it finally does? It was never just a monument. The white gold tower is older than the Empire, older than the divines as we know them. It has been claimed, conquered, worshipped, and studied, but never truly understood. The Ayleids built it as a conduit. Tiber Septim turned it into a throne. The Thalmor now see it as a key, but perhaps it is none of these things. Perhaps it is simply watching. For every empire that rose, it remained still. For every god that fell silent, it kept glowing. For every truth buried beneath politics and prophecy, it endured. And if the tower ever falls, truly falls, it may not crumble in stone. It may crumble in meaning because it holds more than power. It holds the memory of what Nirn was meant to be, and a warning of what it could become. This is not just the story of a tower. This is the story of Tamriel itself. And the story isn't over. This was Tales of Tamriel. Subscribe now and never miss the truths that echo louder than any throne.